Good evening. Welcome to the news. This is Subhani Mokhtan. Let's begin with the headlines. Clause-wise discussions over the amended bill of the new Constitution 2015 begins in the Constituent Assembly building. Madheshi People's Rights Forum Democratic officially steps out of the Constitution drafting process. Lawmakers of NC demand to halt the Constitution drafting process for dialogues with the agitating groups. South African Kevin Anderson defeats Andy Murray to enter into the quarterfinal of US Open. And UK says it would launch more secret drone strikes in Syria to spoil potential terror plots. Welcome back. Now news in detail. The clause-wise discussions over the amended bill of the new Constitution 2015 began in the Constituent Assembly meeting on Tuesday. President of the Constitution Draft Committee, Krishna Prasad Sitaula, presented the proposal to initiate the discussion over it in the meeting and was approved from the majority. Leader Sitaula added that message has been disseminated among the people that the new constitution would be promulgated soon, as constitution writing has already entered into a crucial phase. He said that the solution of the dispute and problem would be searched through the clause-wise discussions. He was confident that it would take the peace process to its logical conclusion and further assured that the constitution writing would lead an outlet for establishing the sustainable peace and prosperity in the country. As the CA meeting began, the lawmakers from different Madhesh-based political parties, dissatisfied with the amendment proposal of the major parties, boycotted the meeting, stated that their demands were not addressed. Tarai Madhesh Democratic Party Nepal lawmaker Mahendra Raj Yadav said that they would boycott the CA meeting until an environment conducive was created for the same. He also hit out at the government for mobilizing the army in riot-hit areas and political parties for failing to implement past agreements struck with the Madhesh-based parties. He urged major parties to promulgate the new constitution only through consensus after calling the mobilized army back to the barracks. Likewise, Rukmini Chaudhary of Sanghiya Lokatantrik Rashtriya Manch, Tharuhat, said they would not take part in the amendment process as no initiative was taken to address the demands of Tharu, Janajati, marginalized communities, and various agitating groups. Similarly, Nepali Congress lawmaker Suryaman Gurung said the voices of indigenous and Janajati should be heard seriously. Total 8 lawmakers presented their reasons behind the amendment proposals registered by them. The meeting of the Constituent Assembly is adjourned until 10:30 a.m. on Wednesday. Madheshi People's Rights Forum Democratic on Tuesday afternoon met the Constitutional Assembly chairperson Subhash Chandra Nemwang to inform him that the party has officially stepped out of the constitution drafting process. Leaders of the party, including Chairman Bijay Kumar Gatsadar, handed over the written letter about the party decision to the CA chairperson Nemwang at his office in Singadarbar. Leader Gatsadar expressed fury and alleged the top 3 parties, Nepali Congress, CPN-UML, and Unified Maoist, of neglecting the issues of the Madhesh and aspiration of Madheshi people during his meeting with Chairperson Nemwang. He has argued that participating in the statute drafting process is no longer meaningful for his party, since the top 3 do not seem serious to address the demands of the Tharu and Madheshi communities. He said that even the Unified Maoist chairman Pushpa Kamal Dahal, on whom he said he's accorded more trust, had not shown any concern to fulfill their demands. The lawmakers of the Nepali Congress have demanded to immediately halt the constitution drafting process and hold dialogues with the agitating groups. In a meeting with the party's top leaders held at the Prime Minister's official residence, Balwatar, CA member Shekhar Koirala and Arjun Narasimha Kesi were among the leaders demanded to halt the current process and hold extensive dialogues with the protesting parties before resuming the statute writing. Several lawmakers applauded to express approval to Leader Koirala's opinion. From those who put their views until now, lawmakers including Surendra Chaudhary and Ganesh Mandal have also suggested to seek solutions through talks. Lawmakers have urged in the meeting that the constitution drafted by excluding Tharu, Madheshi, Janajati and women will have no meaning since the people will not own such a document. Madheshi lawmakers have put several demands, including demarcating 3 provinces in the Tarai Madhesh, ensuring proportional representation in the statute, determining electoral constituencies based on population, equal treatment to citizenship based on descent, and naturalized citizenship. President Dr. Rambaran Yadav conferred the Nepal Vidya Bhushan medals on 229 people on the 36th National Education Day 2015 on Tuesday. The President conferred the Nepal Vidya Bhushan A class to 141, B class to 74, and C class to 14 students at an investiture held at the Shital Nivas this morning. The students getting the degree of PhD are conferred with the A-class medals. Those securing the highest grades in the examinations under different faculties in the master's level conducted by various universities, the B-class medals, and those scoring highest marks and grades at the bachelor level, the C-class medals. On the occasion, President Yadav presented the Nepal Chhatra Vidya Padak medals to 31 women. This medal is conferred on the highest scorers among the girl students in the bachelor level in different subjects. The slogan for this year's Education Day is Quality Education for Sustainable Development, Safe Educational Institutions for All. Vice President Paramananda Jha, Education Minister Chitralekha Yadav, and the high officials of the Government of Nepal were present at the ceremony. Time now for a short break. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. Now 24 social development updates. African leaders and experts on disaster risk are moving ahead on detailed planning of implementation of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. A report.
The new global agreement on reducing disaster losses and a key pillar of the post-2015 development agenda. They have also agreed on peer reviews of each other's performance in implementing national action plans based on the Sendai framework. This process will start in September when Malawi will undergo the first such peer review on the continent. Mr. Jamie Neto, a member of Mozambique's parliament who sits in the Committee on Agriculture, Economy and Environment, said that they cannot be surprised by climate change. If they don't learn lessons from the past, they will lose lives, assets and investments because they have forgotten the lessons of 30 years ago. The head of UNISDR, Margareta Wallström, welcomed the outcome of the forum. There can be no doubt about Africa's commitment to disaster risk reduction. Africa was the first region to hold an intergovernmental meeting to voice support for the Sendai framework. It is a great advance to see peer reviews will now be used for exchanging experience between countries in disaster risk management and monitoring the implementation of agreed commitments. A 3-day forum in August, hosted by Mozambique and supported by the 13-member Southern African Development Community, brought together leaders and experts from countries which have suffered major disaster events over the last 20 years: Kenya, Malawi, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe. Ms. Sharon Russo, the head of UNISDR's Regional Office for Africa, said that the key outcome of the forum is that each country delegation has developed a detailed plan of action that outlines explicitly how they can return to their home countries and tackle the important work of integrating disaster risk reduction across all sectors and throughout all levels of government. They are working on how to integrate ideas such as resilient infrastructure, agriculture, spatial planning, risk governance, and climate services into national planning processes. The forum, entitled the 5th Leadership Development Forum on Mainstreaming Adaptation and Disaster Risk Reduction into Development, concluded August 28 and was organized by UNISDR, Regional Office for Africa, the United Nations Development Programme, and the Government of Mozambique with support from South Korea's Ministry of Public Policy and Security and the Metropolitan City of Incheon and the Southern Africa Development Community. It aimed at boosting the development of operational plans to integrate disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation, international development planning and budgetary process, and to increase social demand and political commitment. Commenting on next steps, Mr. Blessing Sileva, an Information Management Officer for Disaster Risk Reduction with SADC, noted, the national peer review process will take up where this workshop leaves off. It will push countries beyond self-reporting on progress of implementation of disaster risk reduction mainstreaming. The Sendai framework sets targets to achieve the substantial reduction of disaster risk and losses in lives, livelihoods, and health, and in the economic, physical, social, cultural, and environmental assets of persons, businesses, communities, and countries.
And now it's time for business updates.
Business news in association with ICFC Finance Limited, your complete banking solution. LG Smart Refrigerator, NB Bank Limited, the bank for everyone.
China's imports in August fell 14.3% in yuan-dominated terms from a year ago, while exports fell by 6.1%. The steep fall in the value of imports reflects lower commodity prices globally, particularly crude oil. The numbers mean China's monthly trade surplus expanded by close to 40% from the month earlier to 368 billion yuan. China recently revised down its 2014 economic growth from 7.4% to 7.3%, its weakest for almost 25 years. In US dollar-denominated terms, exports for the month of August fell 5.5% from a year earlier, slightly less than expected, while imports fell by 13.8%, leaving China with a surplus of $60.24 billion. Currency conversion factors based on US dollar and Chinese yuan movements over the last year mean some official numbers from the mainland are now reported in both currencies. A fall in both import and export figures had been expected as China's economy slows, though analysts said the drop in imports was greater than forecast. Economic growth in the 19 countries that make up the Eurozone has been revised upwards. The second estimate of gross domestic product, GDP, for April to June put growth at 0.4%, up from the first estimate of 0.3%. The European Statistics Agency Eurostat also revised growth in the first quarter from 0.4% to 0.5%. Meanwhile, on Tuesday, it was announced that German imports and exports had both reached record levels. Boosted by the continuing weakness of the euro, exports rose 2.4% to 103.4 billion euro in July. The Federal Statistics Office, D-Statis, estimated after adjusting for seasonal and calendar effects. Imports also rose, but not by as much, meaning the trade surplus grew to a record 25 billion euro. The upward revision to GDP for the first quarter is a result of the inclusion of Ireland, which had not been counted in earlier estimates. Time now for another break. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. Now sports updates.
Sports news in association with Red Bull, the one and only energy drink.
Roger Federer cut down big-serving American John Isner in straight sets at the US Open to claim an accustomed Grand Slam quarterfinals spot at Flushing Meadows. However, there was bad news for Andy Murray, who fell out of the US Open under a barrage of aces and service winners off the racket of towering South African Kevin Anderson. Anderson reached his first Grand Slam quarterfinals with a 7-6, 6-3, 6-7 and 7-6 victory at Louis Armstrong Stadium after a string of 7 losses in fourth-round matches at Grand Slams. Murray's loss snapped the Briton's run of having reached 18 consecutive Grand Slam quarterfinals. Meanwhile, Federer, winner of a record 17 Grand Slam titles, beat 13-seed Isner 7-6, 7-6, 7-5 to set up a last 8 clash against 12th 6-seeded Frenchman Richard Gasquet, who ousted 6-seeded Czech Thomas Berdych in 4 sets. The world number 2 will be contesting his 46th Grand Slam quarterfinal. Federer, who never lost his serve, held his own from the service line to thwart Isner and used his returning skills to derail a pair of long streaks enjoyed by the American. The 34-year-old Federer closed out the 2-hour 39-minute fourth-round match by breaking the 6'10" serve, ending the American's string of 108 consecutive service holds at the US Open, dating back to the beginning of last year's championship. Berdych's time in Flushing Meadows came to an end with the 6-seeded Czech falling 2-6, 6-3, 6-4 and 6-1 to 12-seeded Frenchman Gasquet. Scotland can still reach the Euro 2016 finals despite defeats by Georgia and Germany, says manager Gordon Strachan. World champions Germany won 3-2 at Hampton on Monday to leave the Scots 4th in Group D, 4 points behind third-place Republic of Ireland. The top 2 in the 9 groups and best third-place team qualify. The other 8 and 3rd face a 2-leg playoff. Unlike group leaders Germany, Poland and Republic of Ireland, Scotland cannot now claim one of the 2 automatic qualification spots. The target is 3rd place and a double-header against another 3rd-place team for a spot in the Euro 2016 finals in France. Republic of Ireland, who beat Georgia 1-0 on Monday, has a home match against Germany before finishing their campaign with a trip to Poland. Thomas Müller twice put Germany ahead, but Scotland pegged them back on both occasions via a Mats Hummels own goal and a James McArthur strike. However, Ilkay Gundogan slotted home the winner in the 54th minute. And now international updates. Defense Secretary Michael Fallon has said that the UK would not hesitate to launch more secret drone strikes in Syria to thwart potential terror plots. He said the Royal Air Force strike, which killed 2 British Islamic State jihadists, was a perfectly legal act of self-defense. The men were terrorists who had been planning a series of attacks. MPs rejected UK military action in Syria 2 years ago, and ministers are now facing questions over the attack and calls to publish the legal advice. Cardiff-born Riyadh Khan, 21, was killed in a precision strike in Raqqa on 21st August by a remotely piloted aircraft, David Cameron told MPs on Monday. The strike was the first targeted UK drone attack on a British citizen. Ruhul Amin, 26, was also killed and later identified as a British national from Aberdeen. Fallon said there was no other way of stopping Khan, who the Prime Minister accused of planning barbaric attacks on high-profile public commemorations in Britain. Vice-Chancellor Sigmar Gabriel has said that Germany can cope with at least 500,000 asylum seekers a year for several years. Germany expects more than 800,000 asylum seekers in 2015 alone, 4 times the 2014 figure. Vice-Chancellor Gabriel reiterated that other EU states should share the burden. The UN's refugee agency, UNHCR, said a record 7,000 Syrian refugees arrived in Macedonia alone on Monday, and 30,000 migrants were on Greek islands. The migrant influx has unsettled European governments and prompted diverse responses. Hungary's conservative leadership is building a border fence to try to keep them out, but German politicians have expressed pride in crowds who turned out to welcome new arrivals. A Greek minister said on Monday that the island of Lesbos, which sits off the Turkish coast, was on the verge of an explosion due to a buildup of 20,000 migrants trying to reach the European mainland. The government and UNHCR have brought in extra staff and ships to process the migrants. Germany expects 800,000 migrants this year, but Vice-Chancellor Gabriel said it was prepared for more in the longer term. Before wrapping up the headlines one more time. Clause-wise discussions over the amended bill of the new Constitution 2015 begins in the Constituent Assembly meeting. Madheshi People's Rights Forum Democratic officially steps out of the constitution drafting process. Lawmakers of Nepali Congress demand to halt the constitution drafting process for dialogues with the agitating groups. South African Kevin Anderson defeats Andy Murray to enter into the quarterfinal of US Open. UK says it will launch more secret drone strikes in Syria to spoil potential terror plots. Thank you for watching the news. Good night.